Welcome to the future, where things are looking up.
What do I become, like a rich rock star?
To the present,
It's gotta be the wrong year.
where things are looking different.
Mom, you're so big.
And to the past,
There are two of me here, and there are two of you here.
where things are getting crowded. Michael J. Fox,
Talk about deja vu.
Christopher Lloyd. Back to the Future Part 2, rated PG. A brand new future is coming on Wednesday at theaters everywhere.
Are we back?
We're back.
Everybody, guess what I'm doing again? Watching one movie and podcasting about it. Every day in March, it's Back to the Future 2. So listen each day, or at least try, as I bring you year 2 of Marchy McFly. It's Marchy McFly. One, two, three. It's Marchy McFly. It's Marchy McFly. Oh, Marchy McFly. It's Marchy McFly.
Happy Saturday morning, everybody, and welcome back for day 5 of year 2 of Marchy McFly. It's still technically, I'd say, Saturday morning-ish, late morning. It is 10 a.m. on Eastern Standard Time and 10 a.m. on your clock. Actually 10:20, 20 minutes past the hour. Currently, it is about 34 degrees here in Massachusetts. And here's the new one from Lionel Richie. Folks, I feel like, well, I don't know if I sound different. My little earbuds that I've been using to record, I don't know if I dropped one in some kind of drink, because one of the ears just kind of died on me. And when I put it in my ear this morning, it was wet. So I don't know what the hell I did, but whatever I did, I killed it. So now I have these cheap over-the-ear headphones that don't sound as good, but hopefully I sound okay to you. So I woke up this morning, and of course the first thing I did was watch Back to the Future 2. I didn't have breakfast. Okay, I guess the first thing I did was take my dog out. Then I watched Back to the Future 2. Then I took my dog to the park. From there, I went and got... there's a tropical smoothie cafe that opened down the street from our house. And I've had this thing down in Florida a few times. I was always a Smoothie King guy from my time in Florida. And then from one in Boston. That one's gone, unfortunately. But Tropical Smoothie King, I have to say, pretty good. If you look up The Loop in Methuen, you'll find a nice shopping center that was a mall when I was a kid. Oh, the stories of going to the arcade, or wearing work boots and jeans and a rock and roll T-shirt to try to look cool. Ah, the 80s. Oh, remember the 80s? Yes. Well, getting back on track to Back to the Future, I wrote some notes again here today. I kind of want to focus on the Hilldale scenes, the scenes where we see the future Marty McFly, the oldest 47-year-old I've ever seen, and yeah, so I took a bunch of notes on that. I just want to kind of focus that chunk, today's show, on that. But I took a few notes that might jump around to do different things, and I realized some of these notes I took covering Hilldale I took yesterday, and I was repeating myself today. But one thing I noticed, or one thing I wanted to point out, is remember right at the beginning when he's like, what do we become, assholes or something? He's like, no. You and Jennifer are fine. You and Jennifer turn out fine. Do they? Because in Hilldale, we seem to find out that they're not very happy. Maybe they were just like a kind of, not a marriage of convenience, well, almost maybe a marriage of convenience. They don't seem, I feel like Doc didn't really take the time to check in on Jennifer or Marty to see how quote unquote fine they are, because I'm going to tell you right now, they are not. So let's see, where were we? I'm jumping around here with notes. Another thing I wrote down. 30 years have passed from 1985 to 2015, and yet Marty Jr. has the same hairstyle as his dad did 30 years earlier. Again, just pointing out these things that, conveniently help the story, but logistically or logically, is that the same thing, logistically and logically? I don't think it is. Logistics and logics. Logically, they don't make any sense. So let's do this. So they, after they realize, after Doc sees the Gray's Almanac, they realize that Jennifer, because they left her in an alley, like a couple of a-holes, these cops found her, and using her thumbprint, I just dropped my smoothie. And using her thumbprint, they were able to identify her as Jennifer McFly. And they said, 47, that's some facelift. And of course, the thumbprint never changes, so they just see her as the older version of herself. Doc has probably one of his best lines in this movie. Oh my God, if the old Jennifer meets the young Jennifer, it could be, it could rip a tear in the space-time continuum, blah, blah, blah. Which could end the entire universe. Because best case scenario, though, it is just contained to our universe. Or they could just pass out. Luckily, those are the only two options, and one of those options we do see happen. But again, Elizabeth Shue looks great for 47, they say there. Now, I think of Elizabeth Shue now, when I saw her like in Cobra Kai last year, and then I look at how they made her look to be quote unquote 47, and it's just ridiculous. What either the makeup department should be like, excuse me, did you say 67 or 47? Or if just, did people age that terribly different 30 years ago? I look at photos of my dad when he turned 40, and I was like, oh my God, I'm 5 years older than that dude right now? That's crazy to me. Okay, so I talked about you and Jennifer turn out fine. That was a complete lie by Doc Brown. Doc Brown is a liar. I noticed that later. So they go to follow the cops to see where she lives in Hilldale. And there's some interesting things going on here. It's never really explained. And Biff follows them in a taxi. But the cops don't like Hilldale. Hilldale isn't a nice place. We do see Hilldale again in a future movie. I don't think it was ever mentioned in a previous movie. But Hilldale, like, they bring him to, they bring Jennifer there, and the line is, we don't want to be near Hilldale. It's nothing but a breeding ground of tranks, lobos, and zip heads. And I was looking up what they think that means. Like, tranks, you would think means someone who's on drugs, tranquilizers or something. Lobos, someone guessed it was some kind of like lobotomy type thing. Maybe people who had brain implants. Like, remember Griff had a bionic implant. Also, it just sounds funny. Tranks, lobos, and zip heads. And was it Futurepedia that said, zip heads, because they're on the drug called Zip, which just sounds like a drug. It sounds like a drug that, like, you'd find out on the Ninja Turtles. Like, oh my God, Donatello has to stop that Zip dealer or something like that. I don't know. So they follow her to Hilldale, park right at the edge of the street while the cops drop Jennifer off at the house. I do like ma'am, you need to make sure you keep your lights on. She goes, lights on? And the lights turn on. That's a fun little thing because it's her voice. They're recognizing her and turning the lights on. And that is something very accurate to what you could see today. But while the cops think that Hilldale is this like place you really don't want to be around, it doesn't look that bad. I mean, yes, there's some like junk on the outside, but there's a dog walking itself. The neighborhood doesn't seem that bad. So I wonder why the cops think it's, not a great place to live. If you hear a vacuum in the background, that's because there's a vacuum in the background. That's not going to stop me from talking Back to the Future 2, though. But Marty was like, wow, Hilldale, this is great. I can't believe it. It's funny. So I guess the joke is that something you thought was great when you were a kid maybe doesn't turn out so great, I suppose. So Doc's like, Marty, stay here. I'm going to go get Jennifer. And you don't want you to run into your older self. At this point, the taxi cab shows up and Biff gets out. And Marty doesn't turn around ever. Again, I mentioned, I think it was in yesterday's episode, peripheral vision. Just turn your head. Just turn your head to be like, whoa, Biff, what are you doing here? Doesn't turn his head once. Well, Biff goes and hides behind some garbage. Doc is like, come on. And he brings Einstein with him to go get Jennifer, which makes no sense. Why would Doc say, okay, come on, Einstein, let's go get Jennifer? Just leave Jennifer with Marty in the car, and none of this would have happened. But instead, they got to get Einstein out of the car. So make Einstein go with Doc. Why? I don't know, because Doc wanted him to. This is, I feel like, what's going on in the writer's room. And Marty, okay, he's a 17-year-old kid. He gets up. He sees a dog walking himself. He kind of wanders around a little bit, not really paying attention. That's when Doc runs back and is like, Marty, come on, help us with, help me get Jennifer, right? I mean, whatever. No, actually, Jesus, when did this happen? Like, it happened so quick that Biff shows up, gets in the car while Marty is out kind of just wandering around. Okay. So Marty doesn't turn his head and see or hear the DeLorean back up and fly away. Then Biff goes and, has his little adventure. And when he comes, I think he lands it right when Doc comes back and is like, Marty, quick, we got to get Jennifer. And so Doc doesn't see it land, but notices it there. Marty doesn't hear a friggin' thing. And Biff went off and traveled back to 1955. And my question to you, ladies and gentlemen, is how the hell did Biff Tannen go back to 1955? Explain that to me. That doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. That he got in this time machine, said, okay, let me turn the time circuits on, because you got to do that. Let me punch in November 12th, 1955, because I have to do that, because it wouldn't be on one of the numbers listed. And let me make sure I get to 88 miles an hour, per hour, whatever you want to say. And again, that doesn't make any sense. It just, There is no way that Biff would know how to get the time machine to work. And he also, here's the thing, he left, right, at a moment. Why would he then decide to come back 2 minutes later? Like, why wouldn't it have been instantaneous, like with Einstein, where he punches in and comes back to the exact same time he left? So it would be so instant, but it wasn't. So again, just little things logically that'll be like, that I'm poking holes in, that I almost feel like you should have a screenwriter sit down and go, wait, huh? What? Who? We? But? Like have like, they call them script doctors or something like that. Just go through everything. And I almost feel like they're like, dude, we got to do 2 movies together. Okay. It doesn't matter. And you know what? It doesn't matter. Obviously, this movie's 30 years old. It's still very beloved. I still very beloved. But when I'm just, look, dude, I'm doing 31 days of this, so it's gonna happen that I'm gonna poke holes and find these things in it. It doesn't change the fact that there are some things in this that I love, I adore. But that doesn't matter. I love having fun. I love doing this better. It's a lot more fun. Yeah. I talked about Doc's lies already. So Biff disappearing. Okay. Now, I know I haven't talked about what's going on in the house yet, and I'll get there, but Biff disappearing. So we're just talking about outside the house. They go get Jennifer. Biff gets out, breaks his cane very easily, and leaves the receipt for the Gray's Sports Almanac, gets out of the car, and he's sick. He's very sick. He looks, and he leans up against the car, and he's sick. And that's the end of it. We never hear from him again. Now, there's a deleted scene where Biff gets out of the car and he gets erased from existence. Like, he just disappears. Now, I think it was known kook Kirk Cameron on that VHS, like behind the scenes, who referenced, like, well, what you could think is because he changed the past, at some point in the past, Lorraine killed the Biff, right? I feel like there was something where Lorraine shot Biff, and they said so this older Biff wouldn't have survived. Well, I don't know why he disappeared so slowly, but my thinking, I feel like that was said in like a behind the scenes thing, but it's not part of the movie, so ignore that. But here's where I am confused. So later on in the movie, they go back to 1985, and that's changed because Biff changed the past. And they say, well, let's go back to 2015 and stop him. Well, they go, we can't go back to 2015. If we go back to 2015, it's the 2015 of this reality. But Biff went back to 2015. He went to 1955, changed the past, changed the future, and then came back to 2015, and he was still in the current timeline. So what does that mean? I don't understand it. So the whole thing with him getting out of the car is never explained, never touched on, and it's really just a really poorly left loose end. So I was trying to come up with a solution to it. And my thinking was that Biff is alive in the other timeline. And this Biff got back to this timeline, but like this timeline doesn't exist to him anymore because he changed it. But to him it does. But because the other timeline, because he created the other timeline, he's sick and he disappeared. But again, he didn't disappear in this movie. So maybe it's just him like trying to get just coming back to this timeline makes no sense. Otherwise, Marty and Doc could have gone back to the regular 2015. I mean, Biff did, so why couldn't they? I love that when Doc and Marty said we can't go back to that because it's the future of this timeline. And I love the idea of we've created a new timeline that's different to us. But how does that explain Biff coming back to 2015? It doesn't. I'm overthinking it. I know, but that's what I'm here for. All right, let's have some fun. Let's go into the McFly house and, let's see what's going on inside there. I've used this line. I go, Daddy's home, Lord of the manor, King of the castle. I've used that line multiple times. I love Jennifer being like, we got married at the chapel, oh love, when you see a first photo of old George and Lorraine. For some reason, Marty and Jennifer have two children that look exactly like Marty. Nobody looks like Jennifer. But you know what? I say that, but I have a friend, a guy I know, that I saw a picture of his daughter on Facebook, and it looks like you could have photoshopped his face, like a deep fake of his face, onto his daughter. I was like, it's definitely possible for your kids to look more like one parent than the other. Marty Jr. watches, there's the Scenery Channel, because what their real reality is just like other houses and stuff. They don't really like that. I do love that when Jennifer hides and we see the older McFly show up, and she goes, I brought a pizza, and it's this tiny little thing. And Jennifer's like, well, who's going to eat all that? Which I thought was kind of funny. All right, where am I? So this is where we meet our friend, George McFly, again, for the first time in this movie. George McFly is the major character of the first film. He's the one who that Marty almost screws up meeting his destiny, and has to kind of engineer it so it happens. Now, because Crispin Glover didn't want to do part 2, even though technically he's in it for a few scenes, and I'm sure that led to that's what led to some rules and some lawsuits, I believe. They get this actor, I think his name is Jeffrey Weissman, and he does a terrible impression of George McFly, but really a terrible impression of the original George McFly, like more like the kind of nerdier one that we saw at the beginning of the first movie, not the cool, suave tennis-playing author that we met at the end. This guy is like, well, you're right. He's got terrible. Now, okay, you can get away with the prosthetics to a bit, to a point, because he's upside down, and because he's old. But also they're like, you know what? I don't trust him. Let's just hang this friggin' dude upside down so people can't even notice. They won't notice that the main George isn't even here. I feel bad for this actor, because I'm sure he's a fine actor, but he didn't do a good job, I don't think. He was very cartoony. It was just like, it felt... I mean, we knew these were actors in prosthetics, but it just felt like, let's give him a little more so people can't tell. And that's real. I mean, that's it for him. Like you see the real George, at the door, smiling. I feel like at the end of 3, maybe we see the fake one more time. But in the 1955, like, you never see his face because they do everything from the back, but it's like, my God, like, it looks, they're like, let's find a Jay Leno chin and stick it on him. That'll work. So that George McFly cop-out sucks, and I wonder if Back to the Future 2 would have been a severely different film if they got Crispin Glover back. They could have done so much more with older Biff and older George doing something together. The kids could have been the catalyst for them getting to the future, and then the adventure begins, which is exactly what happens in this one. It's just the adventure is Biff-focused and a sports almanac, whereas if it could have been more George-focused, which it should have been, or I think it would have made for a more interesting movie, because, again, just George is the catalyst, and Marty kind of is the... I don't know if I'm using the right word, but George was the heart of the first one. Lorraine, I want to talk about her a little bit. The Leah Thompson back. almost like she looks like she's almost in the same amount of makeup that Marty's in when he shows up. But she's got one of those lines that I didn't realize was quotable, and yet I've used it over the years. And I remember not thinking it quotable at first. And then a kid on a school bus said, "Oh, Back to the Future 2, hydrate level 4, please." And now I'm like, oh, yeah, hydrate level 4, please. I know exactly what you're talking about. I love that effect. Something really practical. Yes, it's product placement. Shows this tiny little Pizza Hut thing. You put it in a pan, you put it in a Black & Decker hydrator, and you use voice commands to say, hydrate level 4, please. But what I love is that it's one shot where she puts the little thing in, closes the door. Obviously, someone's there to pull that pan out, pull an actual finished pizza that doesn't look that great, to be honest with you. Puts that in, and they were able to blow steam out. So that's what really made it look hot. Oh, Ma, you sure know how to hydrate a pizza. Another thing that I like was Marty Jr. watching that flat screen. They knew flat screens were going to be a thing. I mean, that looks like a regular HD TV that you would see, decades later. But he's watching 6 channels at once. And I love Marty when he comes in and he's like watching a little TV for a change. I thought that was one of Michael J. Fox's best line readings. There's a couple things in this thing where every time I see Michael J. Fox do it, it makes me smile. There's a part where they're talking around the table and Marty's like, "I'm sorry, I just missed that whole thing." And I was like, what? That seemed like really out of place. I looked to see if there was a longer scene that made sense. There is more to that scene that they edited down, more with George McFly that we didn't need. But nothing kind of answers that thing. So I guess that was just part of a conversation that was happening at the time. But, Marty says, "Oh, I don't know where Jennifer is. She should have been home hours ago," I think he said. So, okay, Jennifer is obviously having an affair, or she just is not happy. There's no reason for her not to be there. I mean, maybe they said the traffic was bad, but hours ago. And this is me saying Doc's lying. They're not happy. And we learned earlier in the movie where Lorraine is talking to her granddaughter. Was it Marlene? Something like that. It's Michael J. Fox, in makeup. And they spill out all this information for the person for us to hear it, which is just it's poor execution, where she's like, "Oh, your father, oh, he just," they bring up the chicken. "Oh, you got to get your screen repaired, the scenery screen." She goes, "Well, the screen repairman, we would have had it repaired, but Dad kicked him out when he called Dad a chicken." First of all, why is the screen repairman calling your father a chicken? Second of all, there it is again, the chicken that we're hearing again, that causes so much trouble in Marty's life, but also causes trouble in this friggin' movie, where Lorraine's like, "Oh, your father has that problem. He wants to show that he's tough. Mom, I can't let them think I'm a chicken." And George is like, "Well, you're right, Lorraine. You're right." I'm like, Jesus Christmas. And then she tells the whole story of the car accident. "Oh, a man called him a chicken and it caused a car accident and broke his hand, and he gave up playing. He felt sorry for himself and gave up playing guitar, and there was a lawsuit and blah, blah, blah when he hit a Rolls Royce." And Jennifer's like, "A car accident? I don't know anything about a car accident." So that's obviously setting things up for things we see in, well, I guess the past or the present, but it's mostly the past. But we'll see it in the future. So that's just setting stuff up and planting more seeds of, oh, look at this. Don't call him chicken, which is, again, just not. I just hate it. I hate it so much. And then we get Needles. The great flea shows up. They stick him in some old man makeup. And all of a sudden he's Marty McFly's coworker. I don't know why Flea got this job. I don't know how it happened. but it's Flea from the Red Hot Chili Peppers. And Marty obviously, is ready to do some sketchy stuff. So he's ready. He's like, count me in right away. His boss was monitoring his communication. He gets fired on the spot. And they fax all the fax machines because every house is riddled with fax machines in 2015. He gets fired right on the spot. You're fired. This is when Doc Brown shows up and tells Jennifer, press the little keypad, get out of the house. So Marty's trying to explain to Lorraine, oh, no, it was just a joke me and Needles have. And I guess Needles is his friend. It's tough because we don't know any of Marty's friends from 1985. We don't meet any. He's got this band, but they don't really hang out. They didn't really talk at all. The Pinheads. Maybe Needles was a pinhead. That would make sense. So they're talking, and while this is happening, Jennifer hears from Doc. She starts to leave. She sees Marty playing the guitar. He can't really play like he used to. First of all, the guitar seemed severely out of tune. But second of all, I don't think I ever really noticed that he was playing "The Power of Love," which is the same song he played in the band audition in 1985. So Jennifer gets to the door. She opens it right when old Jennifer comes home. They meet each other. Finally, two characters meet each other and look each other in the eye. They're not no peripheral vision where they happen to walk by each other. It's kind of a cute little thing where the older Jennifer, who looks about 65, says, "I'm old," and the old Jennifer says, "I'm young," and the other Jennifer says, "I'm old." Blah blah blah. But I've also noticed that 30 years and she barely changed her hair too. It just kind of got gray. You'd think something would change. Something. So they run Jennifer. She's conked out again. Just so it really is convenient that Jennifer is constantly being knocked out. Whether it's through the sleep-inducing alpha rhythm generator, or shock of seeing her 30-year-older self. But they run her back to the car. At this point, Biff is already out and, dying behind some other car. And they're like, well, we just got to get back and take this car apart and dismantle it. It's too risky to have this car. And Doc's just disappointed that he'll never get to see the Old West, but he will devote himself to that other great mystery of the universe, women. Both of which are foreshadowed for what comes in Back to the Future, Part 3. So they get back in the car. What I like is when they get back in, there's a nice little touch, which I didn't notice before, but I looked for it this time. It says, last time departed, November 12th, 1955. So they showed you right there, that's the date where the last time the time machine was used. Now, Doc could have, actually no, by the time they got back to it, the time would have changed to 2015. So it was a fun little Easter egg that I noticed this time, I looked for, and it was a clue that Doc and Marty didn't see as they head back to 1985. Back in 1985, finally, everything's back the way it should be. Right? That's for another day, my friends. So, I want to thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for subscribing as we are into the 5th day of Marchy McFly. I'm going to go, I think I'm going to go grocery shopping now. Right? I'm going to go grocery shopping and probably go listen to another podcast. A podcast I once appeared on called the Pop Culture Retrofit Podcast. I usually listen to them when I grocery shop or dog walk. And that's going to happen right now. So, my friends, thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for subscribing. You can find me on Twitter and on Instagram at Geek Mentality. The website is fansonexperts.com. The Facebook page is Fans.Experts. This is Marchy McFly 2. 5 days in the books, 26 days to go. Oh my goodness, I'm starting to feel that smoothie now. So, I feel like I also need a nap. All right, that's it. I'm done. Until tomorrow, my friends. Thanks again for listening and subscribing. And here is my theme song. This is my podcast. I made it. Geek Mentality's what I named it. And I think you should listen and subscribe. 'Cause I'm kinda funny and awesome. I think that I'm worth your time. And I'm kinda handsome. My mom says, please listen and please subscribe. At least listen to this episode.
Fans not experts.